Welcome to this video. This is coverage of round 6 of my tournament in Bad Wiessee, Germany, Open Bavarian Championships. Yeah, round 6. I was on 4.5 points out of 5, only conceding this one draw against the top seed. So very nice tournament up to this point. In round 6, I got one of the highest rated players of the tournament, Lenderman from the US, almost rated 2600. He's probably best known to the American audience here of my channel because he has participated in a number of American or US championships in the last couple of years. He had a very good championship this year where he looked like, yeah, maybe he wins the thing, but at the end he I'm not sure. I think he got 3rd place or something in the playoffs. He was leading for most of the tournament. Okay, I had black not so great against a super strong player, but okay, what can you do? Let's have a look. I got the Bogo Indian. Yeah, my preparation, to be honest, wasn't that long. I saw that Lenderman plays d4, c4 and knight f3 on move 1, so all kinds of lines. He also plays both knight c3 here for the Nimzo, or even g3 for a Catalan. Yeah, so it was very hard to predict what he will play, so I was thinking, okay, let's just play my normal repertoire and see what happens. So we got the Bogo and he went bishop d2. Okay, a5 is my move here, the move that I also will discuss thoroughly in my book, and he went a3. Yeah, funny, he managed to play the exact line that I had forgotten to analyze. This was nice, so that actually this game reminded me that this is existing and I should address it in my book. Yeah, it was a bit uncomfortable to face this move, simply because it's really the one gap that I still had, it seems. Yeah, okay, I take on d2 and queen takes. Yeah, it's not a3, it's not a move that scares black much, but it was still uncomfortable to be facing it. Yeah, castles, knight c3. Yeah, with a3, black has basically only this option to take on d2, and now queen d2 is the thing that white wants to achieve. He wants to have the queen on d2 and especially the knight on c3. The knight on c3 is just an active piece and a better place than any knight on d2. Yeah, here the problem is for black, not a problem, but the thing is that in some comparable positions he would like to play d5, and what I mean with comparable is the position without those moves, a3 and a5. If we jump back to this position, there is also this line. And here d5 has an excellent reputation for black as being a very good equalizer in a way. After something like e3, queen e7, rook c1. Yeah, this kind of thing is very, very equal. But if we now look at my game position, let's jump back. If I now play d5 here, the problem is that if we consider something very similar and something like this, we see that a5 is really a move that I don't want to have in this position. Weakening b5, weakening b6. This insertion of moves is very much in white's favor. So a d5 setup is not really recommended, but it's not a problem. I can play with d6, as I usually do in those structures. So I went d6. He played e4, yeah, a nice point of white setup. White gets this big center. I played knight c6. He played rook to d1. Yeah, the move d5 here, kicking the knight, is not very dangerous. I can just drop to e7. Yeah, and if I get in e5, I get the structure that I want actually with knight on g6. so I don't even have to spend a move with queen e7 to prepare e5. Yeah, d5 isn't very scary. He played rook d1 and he played it immediately. It was a bit uncomfortable. He had dashed out all those moves in instantly, basically. And I had to think a little bit, because I was really thinking, okay, have I looked at this before? Is it something that I should remember? Yeah, well, I simply had to play this over the board, but I think I managed quite all right. Yeah, rook d1. What rook d1 does is it prevents e5. Yeah, I simply cannot play the move. Yeah, it just blunders a pawn. So unfortunately, I need a prep move for this, so I went queen e7. Okay. Queen e7, and he played bishop e2. Yeah, there is nothing better really. I was thinking a bit about e5 if this is a move, but it's not very much of a problem. I can take, drop back, and now e5 is a slight liability. He can cover it. Sorry, queen e3, and then something like b6. This type of position is certainly not a problem for black. Or maybe bishop to b7. I have a solid structure on the queen side, and I'm not getting checkmated anytime soon with this kind of bishop, so it's quite okay for black. He went bishop e2. I think this is better than e5. Okay, e5 and d5. Yeah, taking is really not promising much after knight takes. I think I should be okay. So he went d5, and I went knight to b8. Yeah, this is the only possible way to play it. Knight to d8 really is not a good idea. The knight is not coming into the game quickly. Okay, here he played b4. Yeah, this is due to the fact that the move a4 can be a bit annoying for white. If I get in, let's say, let's play a little bit of wishful thinking, something like this. Yeah, and I get bishop to d7, knight to c5. Yeah, black has an excellent position then. The queen side is blockaded, and where is white's play? So I understand the b4 move. Played again relatively quickly. Yeah, here we come to an interesting moment. In the analysis afterwards, he said that my move surprised him, the bishop g4 that I now played. Yeah, well, in my experience from analyzing this position type, and I have this position type a number of times in my book, my experience is that this bishop on c8 is, while technically being the good bishop, it's very often a piece that black has little use for. So very often I think that a trade on g4 is quite a good idea. This wasn't the only possibility here. An interesting move also was knight h5, intending to jump there, and after g3 just drop back. Yeah, intending bishop h3 to disturb white. Also not a bad choice. Yeah, but I think my move is perfectly okay. Bishop g4. It's interesting. He now played h3. Yeah, forcing the trade that I would have played anyway. So I was surprised, but he considered this trade to be good for him. But okay, afterwards we pretty much agreed that it's not leading to that much. Well, h3, I took there, I took b4, and I went knight a6. You can also play knight bd7, which is the slightly a more passive option. It's not bad, right? But it's a little bit passive. I had another idea, a different idea. Knight a6. It attacks the b4 pawn. I was basically expecting rook b1 here. But he surprised me with knight b5. Interesting move. After rook b1, it was my plan to play c5. Takes, and this type of position. In the game, we get exactly the same structure, but I think under slightly more favorable circumstances for black, which means that I mean, both are probably about equal, but in the game it was a little bit more coordinated, my position. This he said that when he went knight b5, he hoped that I wouldn't play knight e8. Okay, this is yeah, I mean, I think knight e8 is very obvious, but he didn't he speculated that I didn't play it. What is the idea of knight b5? The idea is that I cannot play the c pawn now, and I mean something like that. For example, he will take and grab, and it is a little bit difficult for black to untangle without pushing the c pawn at some point. If I don't play knight e8, he can build up with moves like castles, rook a1, rook a4, those kind of moves. And yeah, might be a little bit better. But I play knight d8, yeah, and it was pretty clear to me quickly that I should do that, preparing c6. The point is that he now played rook b1, which is the best move. But if he castles, then I go c6 or c5, but c6 is more forceful. And the point is that this is a very comfortable endgame for black. It's simply nothing for white. I have a pretty good knight here compared to a somewhat clumsy bishop. White has ideas to activate it. Yes, c5 and get around here, but this is still absolutely nothing for him. And it's a somewhat simplified position already. So he has very little chances to do something in terms of playing for a win. And of course, with white against someone 150 points lower, he wants to try to win. So he avoided that, and he played rook to b1 in this position. Yeah, rook b1. Yeah, of course, now c6, kicking this knight out, and it went back. So we have a situation where he has spent time on knight b5 and back, while I have played knight e8 that probably will move back again. So it's not a huge difference if we consider the next moves. Knight here, castles, knight e6. Yeah, I was glad to have this knight a6 rerouted to e6 now. This is one reason why c6 is an essential move for black, trading d against c pawn. Without the d5 pawn in the middle of the board, we have this e6 square, even intending to plant a knight on d4. Very nice. Yeah, he played knight e2 now, covering the weakened d4 square. Instead, there also was the move b5. After b5, I think black should just keep the position. Something like queen b7 is a move. Knight d4 is also possible, but queen b7 is okay. He must be a bit cautious with advancing b5 because it weakens those squares. c5 especially weakened. d4 is not a difference, but c5 is weakened, and he has to be careful with his structure because his bishop is potentially really bad. So he didn't play b5, but knight e2. I think this is also better. Knight e2, knight f6 back, rook to d1, rook to d6. And around here I was really satisfied. Black has no bad piece, or potentially bad piece. Those knights have good positions. This knight always has this intention to jump to d4. The f6 knight puts some pressure on e4. And I really don't have a serious weakness. d6 is securely covered, and it's difficult for him to make any progress. c5 is very tough to play, and even if he gets it in, it's not doing that much. Or b5, yeah, well, gives away c5, but what else is there? So it's difficult. He went rook a1, and I had the feeling that he was really not very much satisfied with his position. He looked somewhat uncomfortable, I was thinking. And yeah, maybe this tempted me a bit, to be honest. Yeah, here I took a longer think and came up with an idea that ultimately backfired enormously. I now took on a1, which is okay. That's not an issue. But here in this position, I made a mistake, really. Not a mistake, probably a huge mistake technically. Yeah? If you ask the computer, it says it's not the best move in the position, but it shouldn't lose. But it got me into trouble, really. Here I can do very simple. I can do something very simple. I can just stay and ask him, okay, how are you going to win this game? What is your intention to beat me? How are you going to do it? I should just play something like, let's say, queen b7 or h6 or this kind of move. And as I mentioned before, it's difficult for white to change the structure favorably. And lots of scenarios are quite okay for me. So let's say this position with rooks and queen traded, a pure minor piece endgame. There even black is slightly more comfortable because of those pawns on light squares. The bishop is not so great. So white probably has to play, if he wants to win, has to play in a very slow manner, yeah, like g3, bishop g2, maybe f4 at some point, this kind of idea. But this also gives me counter chances. I should have just stayed here in a way and not changed the position very much, and then see what he comes up with. What I did was I was tempted by this move, the central break. It's not looking, to be honest, I don't think it's such a totally illogical looking move, because I have a very nicely centralized position and the pieces are activated in a way, but it has concrete drawbacks. And frankly, I just miscalculated something very simple. He took, which was clear, basically the only move, and now e4. This was also obvious. Bishop g4 has to save it, and now I took on d5. Yeah, my idea now is that if he allows it, I will do something like, let's say he plays c5, for instance. Then I can take on g4 and play d4. And I really liked this position. It looked tempting. Yeah? Okay, he has those two pawns, but I have a good center, and his king side is slightly weakened. Yeah, I have ideas like this, or maybe e3. It looked like an interesting position. And one thing that's very important to note is that the situation for this game was a little bit difficult for me. I had 4.5 out of 5, which sounds nice. But the thing is, if you want to score a Grandmaster norm, you need a certain rating average of your opponents. Well, it's 2,380 average rating. And unfortunately, I had very low rated opponents, especially the round 5 opponent, where I was close to get a very strong opponent. I got a very weak one in comparison with 2,200. So my average rating was very low, and it was clear that with a loss in this game, I'm definitely out of any chances for a GM norm. And even with the draw, it was difficult, because there was a slight fear that with a draw, I might get a weaker opponent again. So I'm not saying I needed to win the game, but it was tempting to sort of complicate matters a bit, maybe trying to test him with time ticking down, and as mentioned, he looked uncomfortable. So I was tempted to do something concrete, and this was not a good idea. The thing is, he didn't play c5, he took on e6. This I had expected, but I made a very simple miscalculation. I now took on c4, and this recapture is not really great. After c5, e5, c6, white's pawns are much more dangerous. A big difference to the line before is that the white king is very safe here. This is just bad for black. So after the capture on e6, I had to take on c4. This I had anticipated, but what I did not really see clearly beforehand is that after the capture here, king takes. I have to take with the king, because queen takes hangs the rook, and queen c3. Beforehand, what I didn't really appreciate very much is that c4 hangs, and I cannot really go rook d3. I was always thinking I have this rook d3 move, but here I recognize that after queen c3, of course, I cannot play rook d3. He just takes c4 with check. Not very nice. I immediately recognized that the whole operation wasn't really great, but still, the position is not so bad. I played queen to c7, covering the c4 pawn, which is okay. Yeah, and here we come to an interesting moment. Here I was expecting the move rook c1 very much, and I was asking myself if I really have what I should do here. One line that I had calculated is rook d3, and this is given as the best line by the computer, quite amazingly. I had calculated this line. Yeah, this rook endgame in which black has to suffer, especially against a determined opponent. The computer is quite surprisingly just on 0.2 for white. I would think that white is quite substantially better here with the rook covering the pawn from the side. You have chances to walk. Sorry, not this. To switch the king over to the queen side. Yeah, I had calculated this, and I was thinking, okay, rook c1 is a bit uncomfortable if I cannot play rook d3. I mean, a move like rook c8 does not look very attractive. And I was just about to calculate this when he played b5, and I was thinking, oh, that's nice, b5. He's not really worried about rook d3. Wow, now here I can play rook d3. And then I relatively quickly played this move, and basically when I was putting it on d3, I noticed that I really made a mistake with this move. Yeah, what is it that I should have done? The problem with this is b6. I should tell you maybe right away. The problem is b6. This move is very annoying now. A counter attack on the queen. And yeah, after this in the game I was suffering a lot with my open king. What I should have done is I should have played queen c5, removing this queen from any attacks with b6, still keeping a7 covered. After queen c5, I think black still has excellent chances to get an equal position. There is not that much happening really. b6, for example, here I can take and go to g6. This is something that is not possible in the game, because in the game I have the rook here on d3 where it gets hit with a check. Here I can go to g6, and this is not super comfortable, but I think black should be okay here. For example, if he gives this check, king h6, queen c1, intending a discovered check, I can go here and to g6. White is still a little bit more comfortable. He has the safer king, but this is something that black normally should not lose. This is what I should have done. I actually think that he should have played rook c1 instead of b5, but I didn't take this chance. I played rook d3 relatively quickly instead, and with the move I overlooked b6. It was just like I put it there and then, oh no, I can't play b6. And well, the problem is you cannot really not take it. Yeah, I was briefly thinking about queen c5, but rook a7, king f8, knight e6, this kind of stuff looks very, very problematic. White is also clearly better here, so I just took this bloody pawn. Queen takes. Come on, queen takes. Queen takes. And he took on c4, of course. Yeah, and here the issue is king g6 runs into the check. Quite comparable to this line, where I'm also losing material. This means, I have to move the king. The only king move is king to e7. And, well, my king is just in the middle of the board, and he has this easy to see move rook a6, attacking my queen. And yeah, it is just not very, very nice. This position is, I guess, lost in a practical game. The computer is on +1. Maybe, yeah, I mean, the computer definitely defends better than I can I can defend, but it is really impossible to defend the open king here, I think, in a practical game. I went here and he played g3. That's a good move, making sure that he's not mated. And here, yeah, at first I wanted to play rook d6, but then I noticed that something like that is also really terrible. I mean, no moves, and he will come in with his knight to one of those two squares, or knight c3 sometimes. It is a lost position. Yeah, I went rook d5. Oops, not rook d6. I went rook d5, basically not knowing what to play. Rook d5, knight d4. And yeah, all three pieces attack. I gave the check and went here. Of course, he's not trading. White has a mating attack now. Rook a7 check, rook d7 and queen e6. Yeah, after here, I'm going to get checkmated. And I went to d8, which is not much better. Of course, rook a8 check. And after that, I resigned. After king c7, queen c6, I mated. Yeah, this was a bit disappointing, I must admit, because I was really satisfied with my position around move 22. If we jump back there, this move 24 actually. Here I am. I was really satisfied with my position, and I should have just sit tight here, yeah, and play slow, improving moves, asking him, okay, show me what you got. Can you win this? Well, what is your idea? And it would have been also the better strategy in terms of trying to generate winning chances, simply hoping that with his ambition to win the game, that he does something that is not totally justified. So this was the key position of the game. After d5, I got in some trouble. Not necessarily a position that is so bad that I should lose, but after that, I really yeah, put me in a situation where I needed to find lots of only moves and tactically sound moves, which is getting more difficult with time going down. So it was disappointing. Yeah, so no chances anymore for a grandmaster norm in this tournament. I know that it is difficult for me to score such a norm. 2600 is really high of a performance to play, but still you have to try. If you play there without any specific ambition, it's not much fun. So after this, the tournament in terms of scoring a GM norm was basically over, but there were still 3 games to play, and they were interesting. So I think there's something to look forward to in the coverage of round 7, 8 and 9. Yeah, thanks for watching.